Which companions are going to return in Dragon Age: The Veilguard? It's a question that's on everyone's mind, and it's something that I think can make for a fun discussion. So I went ahead and ranked every single companion in the series from least likely to show up back to the most likely to show up. Let's get into it. Let's start off with Dragon Age Origins. It's been like 17 years since the events of Origins, and in the actual nicest way of saying this, Dog is dead. I feel like you would be more worried about irritable bowels than you would having this guy in a fight, so there's no chance that he's showing up. Right above him, or I guess below in this instance, is Wynn. Wynn is also dead. If you don't read the books, then you wouldn't know this, but before the events of Dragon Age 2, Wynn actually dies. Shale actually hasn't been mentioned in about 12 years, and I don't think that's going to change at all. And I think Sten is in the same boat. I don't think he's coming back. Oberyn is in a list of companions who I am pretty positive Bioware just kind of forgot about. I don't think he's ever going to be mentioned again. Moving forward, these are characters that I think might show up. Zevran and the hero of Ferelden. There's been a lot of mentions and whispers about the Antivan Crows for Veilguard, and I feel like there's a solid chance. It would just be weird if the Crows show up and Zevran does not make an appearance. With that being said, he's definitely the romance option that Bioware disrespects the most, or respects the least in this scenario. Moving forward, I might need to take my meds, I won't lie, but I actually think that there's a solid chance of the hero of Ferelden showing up. I understand all their reasons. Oh, he hasn't had a voice, we couldn't do it justice, blah blah blah. Alright, shut the freak up. Second, I think it's absolutely doable in this day and age to have the hero of Ferelden show up. I don't think voice talent would really be an issue at this point. If the fans get mad, screw them. They get mad at everything else Bioware does, so I mean, who realistically cares? With that being said, I feel like this is just the major conclusion to a massive arc of Dragon Age as a franchise, and I think it would be an amazing send-off if they have the hero of Ferelden finally show up voiced. Everyone moving forward are characters that I'm 100% positive are going to show up in the game. Loghain Mactir. This one is going to be probably one of my more unpopular ones, but hear me out. Loghain and Alistair are in the same camp for me. I think there is a 100% chance that he shows up, because I think that there's at least a 40 to 50% chance that whoever is the king of Ferelden, they're going to make at least an appearance. And even if they don't, I think there's going to be a 100% chance that whoever is the Grey Warden that's left behind in the Fade from Dragon Age Inquisition, I think they're going to make a cameo. I can't tell you what form that'll take. In fact, I think whoever was left behind, I'm 100% positive that they're still alive. This wording just seems a little too intentional. It might just be me. I might need to take my meds, like I said, but I feel like if they reappear, it's either going to be as a boss fight or whatsoever. I just feel pretty confident that whoever was left behind in the Fade is going to make an appearance of some sort. I don't think they're going to leave that thread unopened, especially when we know we're going to be coming back to the Fade in this game, probably multiple times. And because of that, I think Loghain Mactir has a 100% chance of showing up. For Alistair, like I said, he's in the same camp as Loghain. He can be the king of Ferelden, and he can also be the Grey Warden who gets left behind. Also, he has a benefit because he and Leliana are on a handful of characters that have appeared physically in every single installment in the franchise. Between that and the fact that he's just a general fan favorite, I think he's a shoo-in. With Morgan, I understand Claudia Black says she's not reprised and so on and so forth, but I feel like there's just too much writing for Morgan to not make an appearance. Solas has literally killed Flemeth. Obviously, we've tried to do that so many times over the course of the series, and this is kind of like Thanos killing Loki. Obviously, Loki had died so many times, but Thanos finally doing it, there was just a sense of finality to it. And I think Flemeth is actually officially dead, which makes Morgan by default one of the most powerful mages on the face of the earth, if not the second strongest next to Solas alone. Which Kieran also potentially being the Archdemon, and not to mention the Evanuris. Plus, she's arguably the face of the entire franchise. I think there's no shot that she doesn't show back up. And obviously at the 10,000% spot is Leliana. I think beyond a shadow of a reasonable doubt, Leliana Nightingale is going to be in this joint. She has been in every single physical installment so far. She is absolutely integral to the story at large of Dragon Age, and she has the potential to still be leading the Spy Masters for the Inquisition. And if she's not, she has the potential to be the Divine, who, like I said earlier, I am pretty confident is going to make an appearance. Going into our list for Dragon Age 2, I want to start off with a very easy one. This is going to be my most lukewarm take of all time. Bioware does not care about Sebastian, yo. I honestly feel like he is the most forgettable companion in the entire series. I might go as far as to say that he's the most forgettable squad mate in all of Bioware history. I think at most he's going to be mentioned in the Codex, nothing more. Carver and Bethany are in the same boat. If one doesn't make it in, the other isn't, and I think they're only going to be slightly mentioned, and that's only in a scenario if a Hawk who's leading the Grey Warden makes a cameo. If not, I don't even think they'll be mentioned in Codex. Right above them is Evelyn Velen. I love Evelyn. She's one of my favorite characters from 2, but I think her story's done. Realistically speaking, there's nothing that she could contribute to the fight, minus if they do some big endgame moment. She is leading Kirkwall, so there's that, and it's because she's leading Kirkwall that I don't think she's going to leave Kirkwall. Plus, Evelyn's married, and happily so. She probably has kids at this point. There's just no contingency I can see where the story could reasonably write her in. Now, these next two are kind of my iffy biffies. I'm about 40% on Isabella. I stand, but she's not really a hero. In fact, Isabella's kind of a bad human being. I feel like this fight is going to be reserved for the dogs, like them dogs of the series. With that being said, she's also one of the few characters who have actually appeared physically in all 3 games as well. A lot of people miss it. Obviously, Isabella, she has a brief side quest in Dragon Age Origins, which was kind of a running theme now that I think about it. But she's a main character in Dragon Age 2, and she appears as a playable character in the multiplayer mode for Dragon Age Inquisition, which, if you didn't know, that multiplayer mode is canon, and every single individual you can play as is a member of the Inquisition's ground forces, which means that Isabella is actually a member of the Inquisition. She could show up as a spy in this game. Now that I'm saying all of this out loud, I can actually make a stronger case for it, but in a contingency where the Inquisition breaks up, I think they're still going to have their layer of spies and the sorts, and so because of that, I don't want to put Isabella at a 0%, but I also don't want to put her at a 100%. I think there's a likelihood that she's going to appear, even if it's just to continue a trend, but I'm not too confident. I acknowledge this one's going to be a hot take, but I feel like Anders has a solid chance. I think Anders has as much of a chance as Isabella does. This isn't a too commonly noted fact, but Anders was actually slated to show up in Dragon Age Inquisition. He's going to show up very disheveled, very disgruntled, super just down in the dumps. His mind had been possessed by vengeance and the sort, and I feel like there's still a solid likelihood that he could show up. At the very least, I feel like the narrative would loan itself very, very well to Anders being present to it. With how much the Fade is going to be integral to the plot, if Anders doesn't show up, I could very well see Justice making a cameo. Everyone past this, they are my 100%. And I acknowledge, if you're paying attention, you probably think I'm kind of crazy. Hear me out. Hawk. Hawk is my favorite protagonist across the entire series. And I am probably letting my bias show a little bit, but I mentioned with Logain and Alistair that I think whoever was left behind in the Fade is going to appear physically at least once in this game. And seeing as Hawk can be left behind in the Fade, that makes me really confident that he is going to show up. But above him, these are my hot takes. Fenris. I haven't read the graphic novels yet because I was on a mission, but I am actually 10,000% positive that Fenris is going to be in this game. Let's look at some narrative parallels here. We know that Fenris hates mages, he condemns spirits, he is a liberated slave elf, and he has been cursed with markings that are a visual representation of his former captivity. Let's take a look at Solus. Solus is an elven mage who wants to end the world by allowing spirits and demons to walk the earth, and teaches that all elven markings are visual representations of their slavery and captivity. I feel like there is a solid place for Fenris in the narrative of Dragon Age the Veilguard. I think it would be a massive missed opportunity if they don't involve him. I'm pretty confident that he's going to show up. This is going to be my hottest take, so I pray you listen. The character that I think has the strongest likelihood of showing up is Meryl.
Is this nigga serious?
I know this one is spicy. I know that Meryl is awkward. I know that Meryl is ooh. I know she be hitting that Eren Yeager. I know she be hitting that at times. I understand full-heartedly, but with that being said, I do not only think that she's going to be in this game, I think she is going to be a main character. One of my major reasons for this is Solus. Let's break it down for a second. Let's go 1. The Alluvians are going to be an integral part of this story. It's going to be a massive part of Solus's plan. The Alluvians are how Solus is communicating to her. We see just how integral they are in Trespasser, and fun fact, if Meryl does not destroy the Alluvian at Dragon Age 2, you can literally see her Alluvian in Inquisition. That is her Alluvian. What with how much that area is going to be occupying the story, the Veilguard's crew is going to need an experienced mage who is capable of breaking it down. 2, the narrative is going to eat her up. Meryl is the only companion that we have ever had, minus Awakening, which Bioware seems to realize that they just don't care about actually, who's a Dalish elf. She loves her culture, she loves her clan even though they're jerks, she has an abusive home. It's hard for her to overcome that, but she clings to who she is and her culture. She appreciates her markings and believes in the old elven gods. She's proud of her skills with the Fade, she's proud of her ability with magic. In fact, she is literally the most brilliant blood mage we have ever seen in the entire series. Now let's look at Solus, who is one of those old elven gods that she has been taught to worship, and condemns her facial markings, saying that they are markings of slaves, which he's actually right, they don't know that, but he also condemns the Dalish. Her entire belief system is challenged purely by the existence of Solus. Solus also hates the perversion of spirits into demons. And 3, she reminds me of my girlfriend, TBH. And obviously, at the top of the list is Varric. Like, no duh. Bro is literally, like, I'm not even gonna dignify this with a response, TBH. Going into Dragon Age Inquisition, I feel like these ones are gonna be easier to predict. At the bottom of the list, Sarah. I honestly can't think of any reason why Sarah would show up to this fight, which is a little bit sad because I feel like her character story is still unfinished. They really sprinkled just so much on the floor that she is a mage, but has just been repressing that just because of past traumas and experiences. I don't think we're ever going to get a follow-up to that. She's not coming back. I put Blackwall in the same boat as her. I can't see any contingency where bro comes back. His story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. He potentially atones for his sins, and I honestly don't think that he can contribute anything to the fight against Solus. I understand that this one's going to be more unpopular, but I feel like Josephine is not coming back. Every possible ending for her and Trespasser has her end up going back to Antiva. She's retired, and I just don't think this is her fight anymore. These next 3 names are names I'm kind of like Roddy Rich, like I'm not really sure where they fit in, but with Cullen especially, I'm pretty torn. I mentioned earlier that there are a few characters that have appeared in every single game physically. Cullen is on that list. Now, with that being said, I kind of feel like that's the only thing that he's got going for him appearing in this one, primarily because his story has an end too. He overcomes so much over the course of those 3 games, and then by the end of it, he's faced with the powerful trial, addiction. If you assist Cullen in curing his lyrium addiction, he loses his Templar powers, which, while he can still be a good commander, that also means that he's not going to be much use in a fight. And if the Inquisition is disbanded, I can't really see too much of a reason for him to stick around, at least in a physical sense. With that being said, and if you don't clear his lyrium addiction, he dies. So there's just a list of things that make me feel like he could show up, but not necessarily that he will show up. I think right above him is probably Cole. I think the only way that Cole comes back is if Rainy Shockey reprises her role as the bard for the tavern music. In that case, I think he's going to get a mention if he was made more human and they end up getting married. If not, I don't think Cole is going to come back at all. Right above him is Iron Bull. I think Bull has a solid chance of getting a cameo in this game. If not a cameo, then a strong mention. In a scenario where Bull is Tal Vashoth, then I think it'd be pretty strong opportunity if they had a side quest where the Chargers show up. If he's not Tal Vashoth, then Rose Croak. So there's no chance that he's coming back. So I feel like there's a solid chance that he could, but I don't really feel confident that he will. Now Dorian, I feel like he has a pretty high chance of showing up, either as a cameo, or I think he could potentially fulfill the role of Knight Enchanter Fiona in Inquisition. Potentially being a scholar, very, very wise in the use of magics, and also an informant on Solus and his doings, because he's walked with him personally. Now mind you, Varric fulfills that role above and beyond, but I feel like Dorian could also contribute. Plus, there's the fact that he moves back to Tevinter at the end of Trespasser, and I feel like with all the seeds that they were dropping in Trespasser especially, if a character mentions that they're going to Tevinter at the end of Trespasser, I think there's a 100% chance they're going to show up in Dragon Age the Veilguard. These final names are names that I am 100% positive are going to show up. For one, Vivian. I am not the biggest fan of Vivian, minus her drip, but I mentioned earlier, I think whoever the divine is, they're going to make a physical appearance at some point in this game. Seeing as Vivian can be divine, that means that I think there's a 100% chance that she is going to show up. Right above her is Cassandra. There's not a question in my mind that Cassandra Pendergast is going to be in this game. For one, she's a fan favorite. She's been in as many Dragon Age games as Varric. Chew on that for a second. But with that being said, Cassandra's also been in more supplementary material than any other squad mate in Bioware history, which is saying a lot. Bioware loves Cassandra, we love Cassandra, and she's also one of the objective most important characters to the entire plot. I think there's a 100% chance that she shows up. Also, she can be divine as well, so that adds to it. I think above Cassandra is the Inquisitor. The Inquisitor is the only protagonist from the series that I'm 100% positive is going to show up. In fact, there's no doubt in my mind the Inquisitor is not only going to be there, I don't know if they'll play an integral role, but I think they will definitely serve a large role. This game is essentially Dragon Age Inquisition 2, and because of that, I feel like the Inquisitor is going to be pretty strong on the story. With Solus, I'm okay. That was each of them individually. If I were to make a graph or a chart showing all of them together, it'd probably look like this. But that's the end of my bad takes for today. If you want to hear even more of my bad takes, you should know I think that Netflix's Cowboy Bebop is pretty good. You can see my reasonings for that in this video right here. And if you want to watch my most recent video, then you can click on this link as well. If you enjoyed this, or if I got everything right, or even some of it right, or even none of it right, you should subscribe and like the video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.